If you're listening to this deep dive right now while actively ignoring a looming deadline,
Which is, highly likely.
right, highly likely, well, we need to clear the air immediately. Looking at the research we pulled today, you aren't lazy. You're not apathetic.
And you definitely don't just have poor time management. I mean, it sounds counterintuitive.
Yeah.
But the consensus across these medical journals and psych studies is...
It's a biological war.
Exactly. A war taking place right inside your skull.
And it's a war with a lot of casualties. The data shows something like 70 to 95% of students and a solid 20% of adults are chronic procrastinators. So our mission today is to unpack why the brain is wired to delay.
And how to actually hack that wiring to stop it. To do that, we have to look at the combatants in this evolutionary mismatch.
Right, the two corners of the ring.
Yeah. In one corner, you've got the limbic system, specifically the amygdala. This is ancient hardware, and it cares about one thing, which is immediate safety and comfort.
Homeostasis, basically.
Homeostasis, yes. And the other corner is the prefrontal cortex, the modern CEO of the brain doing all the long-term planning. But when a task feels threatening, or honestly just incredibly boring,
the limbic system screams danger and just completely overrides the CEO, which connects to the emotion regulation theory from the psychology papers. This was the biggest unlock for me.
it's fascinating.
It really is. We aren't actually avoiding the task itself. We're avoiding the negative emotions attached to the task, the anxiety or the boredom or the fear of failure.
Because procrastination is ultimately just a mechanism for short-term mood repair. You're giving in to feel good.
But then there's that mathematical trick being played on you, too.
Right, hyperbolic discounting.
This part felt like my own brain was gaslighting me.
Well, it kind of is. The dorsomedial prefrontal cortex, or DMPFC, calculates effort versus reward. But it has this massive bias where it tricks you into believing a task will require significantly less effort in the future than it does right now.
So future me is Superman, but present me is just too tired to deal with it.
Precisely. And making matters worse is the dopamine gap. Usually dopamine helps initiate action.
But for boring tasks, you don't get that anticipatory spike before you start.
Exactly. You only get the chemical reward after you finish. So you face this huge initiation barrier where your brain is starved for a reward that just isn't coming yet.
That lack of initiation dopamine really explains what the notes call intellectual procrastination or productive instability. I think a lot of listeners will recognize this one.
Oh, absolutely. It appeals perfectly to the learner persona, the classic trap for high achievers. You feel productive because you're reorganizing notes or color-coding a spreadsheet.
Or researching just one more source. But the research argues this is a defense mechanism.
You're building a shield with busy work to avoid the vulnerability of doing the real work, the actual synthesis where you might fail.
Right, it's so much easier to edit a font size than to write on a blank page. And on the flip side, you have arousal procrastinators, the people who claim they work better under pressure.
But looking at the cortisol studies we gathered, that's a dangerous game. It's totally unsustainable. They're essentially waiting for a panic-induced spike of adrenaline to force the limbic system to shut up.
It bridges the dopamine gap in the short term, but the long-term cost is burnout. So the biology is completely stacked against us. Let's pivot to solutions.
The sources suggest we need to stop relying on willpower and start using neuroscience.
And the most cited tactic here is the 10-minute rule.
It's simple but effective. The whole goal is to lower the amygdala's threat detection. If you tell yourself you have to write a massive thesis, the amygdala hits the panic button.
But if you commit to just 10 minutes, the threat feels manageable. And usually once you cross that mark, you've mechanically forced the dopamine to kick in.
You've bridged the gap. But there's another hack that's even more important and honestly much harder to do. Self-forgiveness.
I read that part twice. It sounds so soft. Shouldn't we be disciplined? If I forgive myself for wasting time, doesn't that encourage me to just do it again?
The data says the exact opposite, actually. Feeling guilty about past procrastination increases your overall stress levels.
Which keeps the amygdala active.
Yes,
Yeah.
and that triggers more procrastination on the next task. Forgiving yourself breaks the feedback loop. It reduces the cortisol that caused the avoidance in the first place.
So beating yourself up is literally fuel for the next procrastination cycle. That really highlights that procrastination isn't a character flaw. It's an initiation defect.
That is the core takeaway here. The goal isn't to be a robot. It's to get past the initial friction so you can reach the flow state,
where the prefrontal cortex can finally take the wheel and work becomes effortless. So we'll leave you with this thought to chew on. If procrastination is really just avoiding a negative emotion, ask yourself right now, What specific feeling are you trying to numb by delaying your work? Thanks for listening to this deep dive.